One perfectly blue, sunny morning when I was around 45 and a half years young, I found myself at the halfway point of a road trip, smack bang centre in the turnaround zone. As far as I get away from home and having just enough time to get back without being late for curfew, the 10-day window. I was with a small group of friends of mine at that moment in time. We were each at various stages of packing up our tents, eating breakfast or getting our packs bound down tight on our motorcycles. There was an air of doubt about this day, as almost all six of us had different ideas about what routes to head back by or which places to see and stop. There had been several discussions, but each had escalated gradually like a slow burning fuse, eventually amounting to nothing, as if that crackling, sparkling live wire had been stomped into the dust by a size 9 red-winged boot. Once each one and all were ready and mounted on their trusty and untrustworthy steeds, a very brief conversation emerged from something one of the group said. I can't remember now exactly what ignited it, but it was lit by fear. Maybe it was started from a prayer, maybe a self-doubt. Whatever it was or whomever it were, I'd just be guessing now. What it turned out to be was one of my pals mentioning that every time he turned the ignition that engages his engine, he wondered if this was the day he would die on the road. I was baffled by this and glanced to each one of the other four to give a look of crazy, right? What the hell? Along with a half smile with a 1,000-word meaning. But to my amazement, one by one, they each in turn nodded in agreement with the self-doubter, and each one then uttered a few words of like, I know what you mean, man. I do that every time. I'm exactly the same, brother. This may be my last ride. I wonder if this is it. As each one had spoken their solemn piece, they glanced to me awaiting my sentence of doom, and were shocked when I just said, fuck that, I'm indestructible. They winced and shook their heads in a blasphemous way. You can't say that, it'll bring you bad luck. I said it flippantly, of course I didn't mean it. I didn't even say it for a reaction, nor to catch a dark laugh. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I have to kind of have faith that I am bulletproof. That I'm favoured or invisible to death, that I can outrun my demons, outwit the Reaper for some time yet. Because if I don't believe that, I'm going to wake each day scared, paranoid and looking over my shoulder. Living like that, I'll be good for no one, least of all myself. How can I seize the day if I fear the dark? Soon after, we all set off towards the Pyrenees Mountains. I had some sideways glances that made me feel bad about what I'd said. I was in front of the others as no one seemed to ever care to be the route finder. None of us had sat-nav back then, so I used to just look at a map in the morning and do my best to remember the names of larger towns and roughly head that way. I was not even 1 mile down the road when I started to feel I'd cursed myself. A voice crept up behind me, a haunting wind-swept cackle that seemed to be chasing me down, laughing in taunted bursts of wicked joy. You've done it now. This'll be the day of death, the day of twisted metal, the road in flames. The mountain of doom awaits, you won't make France, you'll die in the peaks of the Pyrenees. Will it be an oncoming truck, a blowout? Are you going over the cliff? What will it be? How shall thee go down? He'd caught up with me now, that darkly little demon was perched firmly on my left shoulder. His clawed feet gripping my 4Q canvas coat tightly. The tips of his claws had pierced the thick material and were a millimetre or two into my pale flesh. The dirty, rotten bastard, he had me. All the sideward huffing and blowing in the well wouldn't heave him off. I turned my head and tried to bite him or headbutt him, but he just leaned back and artfully dodged. I tried speeding up to see if he could stay there at 90 miles per hour, but then got myself paranoid. That was a seed he'd planted in my mind. Was he already in control of my brain? I was losing it. I was losing my shit fast. I slowed back down to 70 and called for backup. I called on one of my assassin angels. I have a bunch of them, you see. Old dead friends, relatives, dogs, and even a crow called Black Joe, whom I used to know. They never need asking twice, and for this problem at hand, I called on Bear. Bear was a dog I'd hung around with when living in Portugal in 1990. He was the most fearsome, loyal and trusted dog I've ever encountered. The strength and guts of a lion, a street dog, a huge bag of bones when Stan, Mikey and I met him. We took him in and gave him a bath. Mikey was working at a restaurant at the time and he'd bring him home a whole roast chicken every day. Bear would eat that whole thing, crunch that bird down like it was the last meal on earth. I learned a lot about life as a street dog living with Bear. They each had their own territories, and when they crossed the county line, it meant war. Bear's territory was a parade of shops and bars where we mostly hung out. It was opposite a woods. There was only Bear and Lady ran that street. There were a few pet dogs in the hood, but pet dogs as a rule never counted, unless they were let roam to loose all day, and none were at that particular time. Lady was a much smaller dog than Bear, but that was Bear's girl or his bitch. So their patch was the woods, hence they were called the woods dogs. Any dog came into that wood, or that short strip of bars would have to face Bear. Lady was a lover, not a fighter. Bear never lost a fight in the whole time we knew him. No dogs really dared come into that zone. However, where Bear started to hang out with us, he'd never want to leave our side, therefore soon found himself wandering through many of the other dogs' territories. And many a war was won. None were lost that we witnessed. The beach dogs were among the toughest, probably as they were the most well-fed of the areas we went. The first visit to the beach with us, Bear was jumped on by all three of them in a three-prong attack. Two of the beach dogs were really large, mixed sort of breeds, but very much Alsatian size and strength. The third was an evil little Jack Terrier mashup. He went for the nuts and only the nuts. Bear had a hell of a fight that day before he was allowed to sit and relax on our towels while we swam. Of course, Stan and I helped him. 3-1 was unfair. It was quite a commotion on that sunny holiday beach of Playa d'Oro that day. Kids running for their lives, parents grabbing up babies and bottles of sun cream as the carnage erupted, people running for the water for safety as the dogs and the 19-year-old grunge hippies fought it out. But it was all over really quick. This only happened the once. After he won that battle on the beach, any time we went back they never bothered him an inch. They would all three sit well out of our way. The supermarket dog was feared by all around. He was a notorious hound, feared by dogs, cats, humans. No one ever stole from that particular supermarket. Even the mighty Bear was afraid. He used to go around the block and meet us on the other side of the street if we cut down there. That is until Lady, his girlfriend, rolled down there one day with us, and that big old Rottweiler came sniffing her ass. Bear tore up the street when he saw it and flattened that big rock. The owner of the supermarket came out from behind the till with a thick wooden broom handle and went to hit Bear, and we ended up having to get involved as that didn't seem too right. That Rottweiler had tore apart many dogs in its day, and it was just his turn to lose. But the funny thing is, after that day on, Bear always came down into that territory with us, and the Rottweiler went inside the shop and hid. He'd never forgot. Dogs don't forget. They never try their luck twice with the same opponent, it seemed. I learned a lot about being on the street with Bear. It broke my bloody heart to say goodbye to him when it was time for us to leave Portugal, but I had nowhere to live myself in the UK at that time. Also, back in 1990, to bring a dog back to the UK required months in quarantine. A dog that had been free his whole life to roam would have died in the cage. Our friend Kelly took him in when we had to return to the UK. He was a fairly old dog then, even in 1990, so I could quite comfortably call him now in the 21st century. Any time, day or night, for he resides in the stars. He may have been a Portuguese dog, but he spoke fluent English like the best aristocrat gentleman bulldog you'd ever met. So back to my situation at hand. Me, with the poisoned doubts, riding towards France, the demon on my left shoulder. Remember, I was telling you a story. Well, Bear came flying down and sat on my right shoulder, claws gripping lightly but with weight. Bear is level-headed and good to have around in a fight. The little demon of doubt, who I'll call Frank, was already unnerved. Frank had not yet relented by any means, but his voice had lost part of its dark joy, sensing my assassin angel's presence. Bear explained to me over the thump of the old 1340 Evo engine that if I let Frank in, I'd be as good as dead. It would only lead to self-doubt. The doubt of oneself is a slippery slope, a well-greased metal slide into the abyss of the unfortunate. Whatever you do, Mark, don't let Frank in. He is like a disease, it's contagious, and just by those guys talking about it, the germs are now airborne. They are trying to penetrate your system and bring your system down. Before, man, you were free. Maybe a false sense of freedom, but happy in the ignorance of it. There was just you, the pounding engine and the devastation of the straight-through exhaust, the whistle of the wind, the carelessness of faith. Now this wine, this niggle, has opened the back door to your subconscious. He has unscrewed the lid on this bottle of disease and is emptying the contents carelessly, cruelly. The disease of what if. What if my front tyre explodes? What if a lorry comes at me head on? What if that car pulls out the last seconds? What if I hit a curb? What if I get rammed from behind? What if a car jumps the lights, takes me out from the side? What if a piano falls on my head? A sinkhole opens up and swallows me? What if I ride off from the petrol station, forget to replace the gas cap? The ash drops from my cigar and lands on the inside of my petrol tank. I blow up in flames, and as I burn, smell like a fantastic barbecued chicken. A whole horde of homeless folk scavenge round, pour on mama's hot green chili sauce, and devour my hot remains as they laugh about the good old days when more people carried cash. Once you're in, my old friend. The disease of what if. Mind games. I had a good catch up with Bear. We laughed about some things I'd long since forgotten. Like how Bear would often walk Mike Morey's girlfriend Jay home, the 1.5 mile into the darkness, down this lonesome, unmade dirt road, while Mikey and I sat drinking and talking shit at the Cosmo bar. Once Bear had got her there safely, she'd give him a biscuit or a treat to enjoy on his march back to meet us at the bar, where he'd walk up proudly and lay under our table into the twilight hours, where we would stretch stories till the sun came up, high on little dinnies, diet pills, little blues that had come down from hell. Lastly, I recalled the time the Portuguese guy regretfully kicked Bear. The dog was across the street from where we sat. Bear was under the shade of a tree. The shadow had stretched over the pavement, and so Bear was sprawled out upon it. There was little foot traffic that day, and everyone who had come across him on the pavement had done so with a smile, then stepped into the road or the dirt to pass him by. But then along came this chap, this fella, this big, tall, brutish-looking guy. He had a leather box jacket on. I never trust anyone in a box jacket. They will glass you or stick you as quick as look at you. This guy was strutting like he owned the neighbourhood, and if he had been Sicilian, he'd have been mafia. He had the thickest black moustache I'd ever seen in my life, and as I looked up, the guy's leg was in mid-swing and he kicked Bear hard in the arse as he slept. He was not walking around a stray dog. We leapt up out of our chairs, but before we were even standing, the dog had jumped up and struck like a lightning bolt, sinking his sharp teeth into the guy's arm. As he tore away from the figure, a huge strip peeled off the leather jacket, peeled it like a banana skin, leaving Bear with an 18-inch piece of tan leather between his teeth. Knowing this was not a street dog to street dog fair fight, he turned towards where we were sitting, wandered over and lay by our feet, with his chin lying out on the hot ground, staring smugly back at the big guy with the angry face. The big man shouted out some foreign swear words to us all and received 3 well-used middle fingers and a few choice words back. He took off his jacket and went about his way. Man, I keep getting distracted by the bear stories. Let's wrap this up. Me, I'm on a motorcycle, a demon on my left shoulder, a flying dog called Bear on my right. It's the 21st century. I'm heading towards the Spanish-French border in the Pyrenees. 5 friends are riding behind me. Bear and I finished talking as I blasted along the road. I smiled at him sadly in my mind as I bid him fare thee well. Before Bear left my shoulder though, he walked around the back of my collar. No, not walked. He tiptoed really, lighter than a ninja at night, as delicately placed steps as only an assassin angel dog would know how. He stole up behind Frank and then in one fast, sharp mechanical motion lunged forward and bit him so hard at the back of his neck he broke clean through the demon's spine. Then Bear gracefully flew away with Frank's dead, limp body tightly in his jaws. I guess there was no chicken from Mike Moray tonight. It's good to have a little fear. We are all mortal, the fragile ones. This ain't DC Comics, this ain't Marvel life. Lana Del Rey once said, choose your last words, this is the last time, because you and I, we were born to die. Tomorrow is promised to no one, is why we live today. Remember our mortality, but don't let it ruin the time for living. It's a good day to be alive. No one has to ride a motorcycle, it's a choice. If it scares you that much, maybe it's not for you. That's not a bad thing either. I don't think we should all be fighting fear like that every day. If I actually thought those bad thoughts every time I threw a leg over my bike, I'd kiss her goodbye. I'd feel like someone is trying to tell me something. I'd go with my gut. I had 2 near crashes on my old chopper before the third one actually took her out. All 3 were in the last 3 weeks I had her. That's crazy considering I had her 12 years with no drama. That third and final blow, she got wrecked, killed, murdered. I rolled, somersaulted and flipped 30 metres down the dual carriageway. I had no gloves on, open-faced lid, tracksuit bottom, sweatshirt and ill-fitting slip-on work boots. The boots flew off my feet with the G-force of the flip. However, I escaped with cuts and bruises to my arms, hands, etc. and a fractured ankle. I've often looked back at the first 2 close ones and thought maybe they were warnings. It made letting go of Jolene a lot easier. Her time was done. Maybe she was tired, or maybe she was just satisfied. I don't linger on it. I just feel it was what was meant to be. I still have the good times we shared in my heart, and until we meet again, my darling, I have you to thank for them all.